no one has gone before.
Well, this looks reminiscent of so many things that we've seen over the last several years. A high tourism facility where a lot of European tourists in a very high peak tourism time. A car attack that we've been seeing in Europe, as some of your earlier guests have seen, a low-tech type of an attack. Then you've seen assailants running through the city. Now we're hearing about, two potentially assailants inside of a restaurant. This reminds me a little bit of what we saw in Bombay in the Taj Hotel years ago, where assailants held up inside of a hotel, took some hostages to try to prolong a media blitz where they were able to talk about their demands, talk about their issues, and keep hostages. So this is reminiscent of many of the things that we've seen that politically they try to get their issues heard, to give voice to their narrow, disgusting.
You use social media. Be sure to update your status. We are aware of the reported incident in Las Ramblas in Barcelona. Please avoid the area and monitor local police for updates, which we are. Still, we don't know that much right now, Mustafa. What is it like on the ground right now as they try to figure out what is happening and what is still happening on the ground there?
Yeah, and a lot of the information, as you say, as we ask people, Americans that are there to tell their loved ones, where they are through social media, a lot of things we are learning is through social media. Even the communication that we've gotten from the police, the local police, saying there's a terrorist attack. That first tweet came from the local police department. In this age, whether it's the local police department, whether it's families, or whether it's terrorists, many of the communications come through social media. And some of the rise that we've seen amongst this self-radicalization has also been through these echo chambers that have been created. People live in these social media memes, and they begin to radicalize because they create a group of people that they listen to in these echo chambers. These extremist viewpoints begin to harden and eventually to make Spain a very unique place, so that there's been separatist movement in Spain. So they're completely non-religious separatist movement. The extremist bombing, the train bombings that we saw, in 2004. Then we saw in 2006, we saw an airport bombing. And then in 2008 and 2009, we saw some Al-Qaeda style bombings there. So Spain has had multiple, both in ISIS, Al-Qaeda style things, but also their own separatist movements. So we're not sure exactly who's behind this. We'll learn that in the coming hours. But it could be far more complicated than what we've seen in Brussels and in London.
Think about Nice, Berlin, London, Stockholm. How do you protect the people on the ground? How do you prepare for these kind of attacks, Mustafa, when we're talking about just a random person getting into a car, in this case a rented car, and just driving and running right into such a crowded, popular area? How do you prevent that from happening?
Well, these are soft targets, and you can never really protect these soft targets. I'll tell you, we've seen this in airports in Turkey recently, where we begin to harden airports, and then we saw attacks happening right outside of the security areas. And so now in many airports, we're trying to prevent people even from getting between 3 mile radiuses before they get to the airport to do checkpoints. So the further we get out, the terrorists seem to go right outside of those areas. And then in these tourist facilities, it's very difficult to do. But right here at home, we just talked about Charlottesville, that we saw this car ramming that just occurred at a protest there. So, this extremism has grown in many different folds across the world. And I think something that sometimes we overlook is that these echo chambers where people talk to each other and begin to amp each other up on their individual narrow concerns, whether they're religious, whether they're on the left, whether they're on the right. They begin to, isolate themselves from the larger society and begin to believe that their individual concern is so valid that they can treat others as less than humans. And I think that that's an incredible danger across the world that we've got to really begin to address and counter this violent extremist narrative.
Yes, for sure. Mustafa, it's Trish Regan here. Let me ask you about something you brought up. Given that this is Spain, given that this happened in Barcelona, where actually they speak Catalan, there has been a big movement of separatists in Spain. Walk us through that other theory, because I think that the instinct that many people have when you see this is that most likely is Islamic terror, but there is another possibility here.
Yeah, the ETA or the Barcelona nationalist group in Spain did an airport bombing in 2006 in Madrid. And that was one of the largest. 2 had died, 52 people were injured. It was a very significant effort. That separatist movement comes and goes. We've seen it take hold in Spain, and over the years, the Spanish have struggled with it. We haven't heard in many years from that movement. But again, the advent of social media has allowed people to organize over the internet and create these individual echo chambers that sometimes, if they go unchecked, can foment this hatred and allow small groups to become violent. And we've got to begin to address this violent extremism.
Mustafa, this is Harris with you now, we're getting some reports, and this is actually coming from one of our, let me look at what the source is here. So this is from the Department of Catalonia region in Spain, their interior ministry on Twitter. And they have a loose translation, but basically it says there are dead and injured victims as a result of the overthrows. I'm guessing there's a word there that doesn't quite translate, but we know that a car jumped the sidewalk, so it's referring to that, I would imagine. There has been no shootout in the El Corte Inglés. Follow official sources, according to this tweet by the Interior Minister. So I've looked up what this is. It is one of the largest department stores in Barcelona, El Corte Inglés. So I just wanted to put that in there as information because we had some reports of gunfire outside this particular location, which is close by. That is a very large department store, and now the Interior Ministry is saying that there has not been a shootout. Now back to you and your thoughts.
Yeah, and as I said, that oftentimes in recent history, we've begun to kind of look at terrorism in the context of Islam and Islamic terrorists, and we're, as we think about this in modern context, extremism comes from separatist groups. It comes in nationalistic groups. We saw some of that here in Charlottesville. Where as we look at Spain now, potentially, and again, it's early. We don't know, but it could be the ETA, the separatist group, the nationalist group in Spain. So it's early, and I would caution all of us as we think about this, as we watch our television screen, that we should monitor our children as to what they're doing with their computers and who are they talking to.